retirement funds, which are solution-oriented products. They're part of a very small category as it exists in the mutual fund space. Joining me to talk about what you should do and whether you should contemplate investing in such schemes is Prableen Bajpai, the founder of FinFix. Thank you so much, Prableen, as always, for taking the time. Let's talk about this particular scheme. Of course, we're talking about the PGIM retirement fund, which has an NFO on. In that context, how should you look at retirement? Should you look at a retirement as a goal in which you have individual schemes, or is it part of your overall allocation that you plan your retirement with?
Good afternoon, Alex. Great to be here. And I was listening to your conversation with Ajit, and an interesting one. Retirement, as he also mentioned, is one of the most important goals for individuals today. With the retirement life of running into 20, 30, 40 years as well, it's a huge corpus that an individual needs to create. Now, coming to retirement products and these solution-oriented funds, Alex, in India, what we have is a category, of course, solution-oriented funds, which have education and retirement as the two offerings within these goal-centric products. But as a product, retirement funds actually don't offer anything new other than a lock-in. So it's still a regular equity fund which can invest. For example, PGIM would be run as a multi-cap fund. And there is no other benefit of investing. So for example, today I start investing and I'm there in the same fund for 30 years. There are still no tax advantages. There is no incentive of investing in these solution-oriented funds. So to some extent, it is great to have such a product in your portfolio because it can give you that name in the overall scheme of things that, okay, you are investing towards retirement. It can bring in the discipline which is required, a 5-year lock-in. So holistically, that's the good part of it. But looking at it as a solution, I feel it's going to be incomplete, Alex. So I think the industry as such needs to work on a product probably where you can allow 2 or 3 AMCs to come together to offer a package solution, which can be then brought to investors like a retirement solution where you don't have the fund concentration risk, you don't have the fund management risk because there's too much concentration of all your retirement corpus is going to be handled just by one AMC. Yeah. So as a concept, it's great, but I think it's incomplete.
But Prableen, I was also looking at the 5-year CAGR of these schemes, and I noticed that it stands at about 11.25%, which is nothing to write home about. It's not very significant. And quite a few of them have very high costs as well. We're talking about, for regular schemes, going up to as much as 2% on the expense ratio, TER, right? So is that also something to bear in mind?
Absolutely, Alex. So it has its disadvantages. The category probably, if it had the merits of being a complete solution, I think it would have really had a bigger AUM as compared to where the industry stands. So yes, the AUMs are smaller, so the expense ratios go up. The fund management teams have not delivered as much. If you look at the returns, the average category returns, like you said, are between 10 to 12%, even on rolling return basis over a 10-year period, if you look at 3-year rolling returns. So definitely, as a solution, it doesn't look very lucrative. It doesn't give you that trust factor that, yeah, if I'm investing in this one product, my retirement can be taken care of. For example, in the fixed income space, we know EPF or PPF can do that for you. I think within the market-oriented products, we still have to have a composite portfolio of different mutual funds and, of course, have the option of investing in a mix of passive and investing when you're doing that for the next 30 years. That's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that is what I was going to ask you next, because a lot of people liken this to flexi-cap funds. And they say that, look, in any case, it's the same kind of management. Of course, PGIM has come in and said that they're going to manage it like a multi-cap fund, but most of these are flexi-cap funds. So why not pick a flexi-cap fund, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So even if it is offering you a solution, it can be a small part of your overall
Hmm.
portfolio, Alex. And if it's a small part, probably it's not really going to make much of a difference. So as a thought, it's great. Earlier, we did have the retirement, the products where multiple models were available. So for a certain time period, you could be in a flexi cap, and then the hybrid aggressive option was there within the same AMC. Now those different models are not available because there the switches were tax free, when you were investing in those funds. But I think as a solution, this segment still has a lot of potential. It is the need of the hour, but it needs to be developed better, I think, by the asset management companies.
Okay, speaking of retirement, and we keep inviting Praveen, our viewers, to write to us with queries, and one of them, Dilip, who's aged 34 right now, has written in saying that his goal is retirement and kids education. My team has shared that with you. I'm just reading it out so that everyone has a fair idea of what we're talking about. He's saying that he's invested in 8 mutual fund schemes, and of that he's talking about 2,000 per month in an SBI Contra Growth Fund and about 1,500 per month in Mirai Large and Mid Cap Fund via SIP. And he's saying that he also does a lump sum investment of roughly 35,000 in the remaining funds on a monthly basis, depending on market corrections. So he's named them. He's looked at the Quant Infra Growth Fund. He's looking at Motilal Oswal Mid Cap Fund, Canara Robeco Small Cap, ICICI Pru Blue Chip, Parag Parikh Flexi Cap, HDFC Index Fund. So he's kind of got a mix of quite a few of these schemes. But what he's trying to understand is which is better, one-time investment or SIPs? Because he, I think, has that feeling that he can time the market, as a lot of people do, Prableen.
Yeah. What he's actually doing, Dilip, is still doing an SIP, just that he's
Yeah.
not doing it on a particular date. So he's had that flexibility with him. So with the 38,500 SIP, first of all, Alex, he can create, because he's not given a very specific time period. If you look at 12% XIRA, he can create a corpus of about 1.83 crores. If he does a step up, which is a very crucial aspect, and especially when you're working towards long-term goals, with a 10% step up, he can create about 3.18 crores with the same expected returns. His portfolio is fine. He's got 8 schemes, so no more schemes to be added. There is only one passive scheme, which is still, there's a lot of overlap with the large cap that he has, but it's okay. He can continue. Now, coming to his question whether he should invest as a lump sum or SIP, he's essentially doing an SIP because his lump sum is going on a monthly basis. But if we just look at the mid cap 150 returns, Alex, and let's look at the 10-year point to point returns. If I invested 10 years back, my returns, rolling returns, would have been about 20.77%. And if I did an SIP during the same time period, my returns would have been 20.5%. So I feel that when it comes to lump sum, the timing, if you're putting a very large sum, it does matter, because if you parked it in March 2020, the story would be different from how you invested in, let's say, 2008 January. So when it comes to lump sum, an STP approach is better. But what I understand, that he's not looking at parking a very, very big corpus in one go. What he's trying to do is, manage his monthly investment through a lump sum. And I feel that he can just free himself of that burden and do a SIP for the whole 38,500, and it'll give him great returns.
Fantastic. Okay. So the second question we're taking is from Sai. He's aged 31, and I'm so glad that people this age are thinking of investing from the perspective of buying a house, Prabeen. So he's doing 5,000 per month in SBI Magnum and Nippon India Large and Small Cap Fund, and ICICI Pru Equity and Debt Fund. Now, I'm not sure if this is 5,000 each. Okay, so this is, I'm assuming this is 20,000. He's looking to create a corpus of 1 crore within the next 3 to 5 years to buy a house. What advice would you give him?
So I'll first repeat what even Ajit mentioned, that 5 years is a good time period to be in the markets. 3 years would be tricky. You have to see both the upside and the downside of the market to be able to make returns, especially with a product like SIP, the mode when you're investing on a monthly basis. So if we take a 5-year horizon, Alex, here, and let's assume the SIP is 20,000, the compounding doesn't actually even kicking at 5 years. It's the longer you invest, the better returns you get. But with a 12%, let's say, expected returns, he can create about 16 lakhs. So if his goal is 5 years away and we say there is no inflation, the house still remains at 1 crores. If he's looking at 50% down payment to create that 50 lakhs and 50 lakhs he can manage with his EMI, then he still requires an SIP of more than 60,000, 61,000 to be precise. And if he's looking at his 30% down payment, then also he requires an SIP of about 37,000. So overall, he needs to increase his SIP. All the 4 funds he's investing in are good. They can be continued.
Fantastic. So the advice essentially is to increment your savings or increase your savings. And I think the point that you mentioned on compounding is extremely important, because once you've managed to garner a certain amount of a corpus, the velocity kicks in only after that. Praveen, thank you so much as always for taking the time. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, so viewers, we've spoken about retirement funds specifically, solution-oriented products and what you should do with them, and we've discussed a few viewer queries. I'd encourage you, if you've got specific questions, to write to us on that number on the screen, and do stay tuned, lots more coming up over the course of the day. This is NDTV Profit.